Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. You're listening to Unity FM 93.5. Welcome to my show. I am Shalina Litt. It's been a while since I've been live in the studio, but I'm here. I figured I would come in to discuss some of the things that have been happening over the last couple of weeks. So the one that really stuck out for me was a very unfortunate event where I heard about a woman who had beaten, even the statement sounds severe, but beaten her son to death. And he was the age of 7 years old, we was told. And this was done over a period of time. And then to cover it, she then, I can't even say it, but it was a really horrific, event. And it got me thinking about, raising children and the mental well-being of women in our community. It also got me thinking about a case that happened quite a while back now with a young girl called Kyra Ishaq, who unfortunately had been starved to death. So it really, got me thinking that we have to recognise, and I guess it was what I was saying earlier on in the shows, that the Muslim as well-being is important holistically. Your mental capability to have that strength and energy to raise your children, it takes a lot. And sometimes, let's face it, your kids can drive you crazy, your job can drive you crazy, and your family can drive you crazy. So, it is, and I say it in jest, but it is difficult sometimes to practice sabr and be patient in these scenarios. With me today, inshallah, I should be having Elias Karmani, who will be discussing, the psychological effects of this and more about what we can do really from the community. But yeah, if you've got some positive things to say about this, then please do call in. And the number is 0121 772 8892. There is also the option to text on 07926 843388. So what is it? Now, these two women were Muslim ladies, and we know that they had mental health issues. I think the lady concerning the 7-year-old boy, we know had come from domestic violence. So could we have done more? Is there enough going on in the community where, there is a space for sisters to talk about these kind of things? I had Shazima on from the Amira Foundation, and I understand that there is something called the Latif Project, that that women who feel like they want to speak, they can access. So alhamdulillah, there is avenues out there, but to my knowledge, I don't really know of any other circles that have this space or opportunity for sisters to breathe. So what I wanted to address really is, how do we, as Muslims, tackle this? If you're going out there and you're meeting sisters, are there signs that you can look out for? Because ultimately, to be a good parent, you have to have that support. And I think these cases demonstrate that support has to come from some communities, and, someone said to me today, why are you focusing on the Muslim community? Doesn't what is outside of the Muslim community matter also? Well, yes, it does. But if we look outside the Muslim community, the public sector is fulfilling the needs, and this is where the Muslim women often end up going, is to these public sectors. So, I mean, if you are a organisation or a circle and you do know about these, or you do offer support for sisters, then please, do call into the studio, leave your details so that I know about you, I'd love to have people to start come forward to talk about these opportunities, to actually, obviously address the well-being of the Muslimah. So, first of all, we have to discuss the child protection issues, and I understand that the child protection is split into three. It is split into the category of neglect. It is split into the category of violence, and also sexual exploitation. Ilyas Karmani will be calling in to discuss that further, inshallah, and go into the depths of that. But indeed, we know that with the Khaira Ishaq situation, it was a case of neglect. And, I understand that the family that would go and visit didn't necessarily know that this was going on. But had it have been a case, what were the signs that we could see? Okay, we've got Ilyas Karmani on the line. Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah.
Okay, thank you for joining us once again.
Barakallah fi, alhamdulillah.
Okay, so we're discussing the sensitive topic of the mental health of women in the Muslim community.
Okay.
I opened by referring to the case where the woman had beaten her son to death. I really feel uncomfortable saying it even.
Right, yeah.
And also the case where Khaira Ishaq, a young girl, had been starved to death.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, I know you haven't got a lot of time, so I want to make the most of this. But if it's a case of, we're out there in the community, where do we begin on this topic?
Well, I think it's important that, in the cases that you've described, these are extreme cases, and, obviously are not reflective of most families. Most families, alhamdulillah, generally tend to have are more balanced and mentally stable and emotionally stable. But obviously we have these cases, and first thing is that it's important that we're discussing that there are issues around families which are very dysfunctional, where there is serious mental health problems within the family, which as a result of that cause a breakdown in the family unit. And part of that breakdown is neglect of children who are under care, as well as violence and abuse of those children as well. So it does happen. We can't turn a blind eye to it. Whether it's the Muslim community, South Asian community, the Caribbean community, whatever the community is, obviously there are these issues. And, when we look at what the factors are, the factors are very complex, and there are multiple factors. Currently we have major economic problems, and there's issues around child poverty. Levels are going up because of the economic downturn, and that's creating lots of pressures on families. And that inevitably then has a knock-on effect in terms of duty of care and responsibility to children, and increased violence in the family unit.
I really want to make valuable use of today's time. So if there's a woman listening out there, and men also, because we know mental health affects both male and female.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
I just wanted to be clear, sometimes we don't recognise that we have these issues ourselves.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what are those things, if they're sitting there and they've got stuff going on, when should a person go to the doctors? When is it a situation? Because we know there are different levels, and I'm just thinking what I want to get out of today's show is, had the community got involved, would we have recognised these early signs
I
with
think
these
what's
women?
interesting about the Khaira Ishaq case, and this is actually indicative of a lot of cases similar, the community did get involved. People on that street were aware that there was a problem.
Oh dear.
And what it was is that I think this is, in psychological terms, we call this kind of diffusion of responsibility. Sometimes someone always thinks that someone else is going to do something about it, and they're kind of making that assumption. There's a classic experiment where if someone falls down in the street, everyone will walk by. As soon as the first person goes to help them, then everyone else will come to help them. So there is a sense of that people knew there was a problem, that the children were going and getting food from bird tables, they were going in other people's gardens, and they could see the neglect on the children.
Oh dear.
But neighbours thought something else was being done. So it's a kind of breakdown in terms of the whole neighbourhood there, in terms of that sense of responsibility for our community and family. But I want to go back a few steps. Do you know when we have a problem in the family, generally you'll find that is down to a family member. And it's interesting, when there's depression in Muslim women or any women, that depression is often caused by someone else in the family unit, and it's often caused by some of the males within that family unit.
Okay.
So, for example, if there's an aggressive... And what happens is that the mental health services pick up on depression in females, but they don't pick up on the fact that there is an aggression issue with regard to male in that family, or that there might be a psychosis issue with regard to male in that family, which is actually causing the female's depression. They're only picking up on one aspect. They're not picking up on the root cause. Let's say there's a child, who's got a serious drug problem. Then that causes a knock-on effect in terms of the mother, who then obviously is seriously burdened and emotionally distressed because of her son or her daughter's emotional state. And unfortunately, there will be cries out for help, and people don't see the signs, the early signs of a cry out for help. That's why one of the courses I run is around mental health awareness for communities, for the simple reason that they can actually pick up, okay, what are these distressed signals?
Yeah.
That someone is crying out for help, that we get the help for them. And what the research shows, and this is research that I've done in many other kind of organizations, what the research clearly shows is that people from Muslim backgrounds, they present mental health issues very late. And so what they are, therefore, they present it what we call when their mental health issue becomes what we call acute. So that becomes a serious mental health problem. And then there's no choice but to hospitalize someone for that. So we don't have what we call early intervention. Early intervention when we start, it's called worried well, when you can see that the person is showing signs of anxiety, showing some signs of stress, showing signs of kind of being maladjusted or not fitting into the kind of family, unhappy, distressed, crying, not sleeping well, not kind of engaging well with other people in that environment. You can see there's a problem.
Yeah. And what I often find, though, is, when I've gone out there to groups or whatever, you do get sisters that reach out to you. And it's almost like if someone goes up and says, you know what, I'm really depressed, I've just come out of a divorce and I don't know how to manage this homeschooling, it's driving me crazy. And it's almost like I've seen the other person go, okay, so to deal with your homeschooling, this is what we need to do. So they've totally just jumped the fence and thought, okay, I can't deal with your depression, but I can deal with your homeschooling. And I've seen it so many times. And I think it's got to the point where it's like, and this is what I'm trying to get from the community is, we need to acknowledge, number one, that there are sisters that are struggling, especially, in general, people are struggling financially with all the changes, but there are sisters and brothers even. Brothers are under strain now because financially they can't even provide for their families or, there are strains there, but for me, I try to always incorporate Islam, but I'm finding that the function of Islam in this is the community. We need that community to take part and put out those initiatives and groups out there for people to reach out to or to refer.
No, absolutely. I think, the first thing is that, look, this is just a general responsibility Muslims have towards each other in terms of looking after each other. Yeah. And this is the simple responsibility, love for others what you love for yourself. And part of that is looking out after other people who you can see that there is distress and difficulty. And I think when things are getting tough, people start to become individualistic and they lose the community ethos. Yeah. The Muslim community, should remember that we are a community, we are a collective, so we should never lose that responsibility. There are three important things generally when it comes to what we call emotional well-being or mental health well-being. Three important things. First is this: you need to live in a safe and secure home. Your home should feel safe to you. If in your home you feel unsafe, you feel victimized, you feel bullied, you feel at risk, you feel threatened, then your home becomes a source of anxiety and stress for you. Yeah. Sometimes we have to identify what is the source of anxiety and stress within the home. And it is sometimes another family member who's aggressive, violent, critical, and is undermining that person. So you've got to stabilize the home environment. The second thing is you've got to have a really positive social network, as we've been talking about. Family, friends, social network has to be positive people who are encouraging you, motivating you, and developing emotionally supporting you, caring you, compassionate towards you, all of that kind of stuff. If anyone asks himself, if you've got a negative social network who are undermining you, criticizing you, bullying you and victimizing you, this is a source of distress and anxiety for you. Yeah. So that's going to have an outcome in terms of emotional well-being.
And I think that's where it's important that you do have that social network, because often, some families can be quite negative, And
I think unfortunately we have a culture in too many Muslim cultures where there is negativity, and I put these up as the four or five big put downs. Okay. And what it is we have a culture of comparing to others. Why aren't you more like so-and-so?
Yeah.
We have a culture of put-downs. You're not good enough, highly critical, breaking promises. We have a sarcasm.
Yeah.
And we really just undermine the basic self-esteem and confidence of people. Make them feel lesser than they are. So put-downs, criticism, comparing to others. So this isn't good. And the third thing I was going to mention is what's important is an individual needs a sense of purpose.
Yeah.
And that sense of purpose relates to their raison d'etre, their reason for existing, and the day-to-day routine that they have in their life. If I'm doing something rewarding, positive, and again, a lot of people will come to me, the biggest source of anxiety is that they are unhappy with their life, unhappy with their purpose. I don't like my job. I think, my job isn't right. I don't feel I'm achieving anything. I'm not motivated. I'm not passionate. So there's all that stuff.
Yeah.
And it becomes your routine, going to work and your colleagues at work. It becomes an emotional strain on you because it's nothing fulfilling in your life. And so the simple solution to that is then go and do that which is fulfilling. Most people, they can't take that risk because it means loss of earnings generally.
I think we lack in the community, though, that sense of how do we establish that, and I don't think we talk enough. Know, all the talks that are going on at most of the masjids and whatever don't tell us how to maintain or to practice Islam as a way of life, and that maybe it is good if you get some kind of fitness regime into your life. It's healthy for you, and
that's holistic health. Holistic health, is that and there's some things that people say if you're sleeping well, if you're eating well, if you're exercising, you're physically active, you're doing something which is positive, then you're generally going to feel holistically. You're going to be feeling good. And when there isn't that, then obviously there's
but that holistic health gives you that mental strength, doesn't it, to overcome when something gets thrown at you. So basically, then you said three things. So good social circles is one.
Yeah.
And then
a safe and secure home environment.
Yeah.
And the third is a strong sense of purpose
and
direction in your life. So these help you create that kind of well-being. Now, going back onto our sisters, and, unfortunately, you're right, the support isn't really there. Good practical support isn't there, and good signposting isn't there. And this is where I feel there's a breakdown in duty of care. And I'm going to be quite critical because this is my work, and this is what I'm confronted with every day.
Yeah.
And I feel there's sometimes too strong a sense of denial in our community that we have problems. We have major problems. And you just have to go, whether it's Birmingham or whether it's Bradford where I am, you just have to go to the psychiatric hospital and you'll find an overrepresentation of people of Muslim background in the acute psychiatric ward.
Right.
That's it. And so what are they doing there? Except that there's a problem.
Yeah.
And the problem is, and one of those, is that if there's a problem, brush it under the carpet, it'll go away. If there's a problem, send someone back home, it'll go away. And if there's a marital problem, just ignore it, it'll go away. And what we tend to do is that we see people who are in distress and suffering, and we're not supporting them.
Yeah.
And I always use this example. If there's distress and suffering in Palestine, in Gaza, you'll find that will, people will be text messaging and they'll do fundraisers.
Yeah.
And when there's a sister who is distressed due to domestic violence in her own home in Birmingham, everyone will turn a blind eye.
Yeah.
And they'll say, it's a family issue.
But then let's look at the reality of why. Because what the masjids are putting out there, and I'm probably going to get in trouble for this, but what the masjids are putting out there is if anything happens, be patient, sister. Be patient and this and that. And there's no responsibility for the men. Who are the men responsible towards?
Of course, we have sabr, but sabr does not mean passivity. Sabr, there's three aspects. Sabr is obedience to Allah, keeping away from disobedience, and thirdly, having perseverance in the time of masibah, hardship and difficulty. Allah says, وَالصَّابِرِينَ فِي الْبَأْسَاءِ وَالضَّرَّاءِ وَحِينَ الْبَأْسِ. Having sabr in times of calamity and disaster and destruction.
Yeah.
So sabr doesn't mean that I just do nothing. It means you have to do something still. And so, sabr should mean get help for that sister.
Yeah.
And help her to be obedient and stay away. If it just means just accept your situation, sabr does not mean just accept it and do nothing.
Yeah.
That's the whole thing. So we need to be realistic, pragmatic, practical, and give people solutions.
Right.
And imams, a responsibility of an imam is to give what we call pastoral support. That means to look after your flock. And that means looking after your flock means getting involved and engaging with them. And that therefore the imam needs some kind of experience, skill and qualification in that. And one goes to saying, the mosques are improving and getting better. We have a long way to go.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Honestly, I know you're cut for time and we're coming near to the end of the first segment. So, a lot to take from there. But the main things, if you could just go over the 3 points again.
First is, early detection. We need to, when someone starts getting worried, is not doing well, losing interest in their activities, poor performance at work, mood swings, self-harm, maybe they're cutting themselves, sleep problems, anxiety, looking tired, isolated, all that, alienated.
Yeah.
These are warning signs.
Okay.
Don't let these warning signs progress too far. Do something then and there. And the simple thing you can start doing, everyone can do this, it's called befriending.
Yeah.
Befriending means that you see someone who's distressed, go and talk to them, support them, help them through their problem, and you might find that there's an issue, and then you need to refer that to someone else. One of the first points of call for most people is the GP. Okay, and so going through the GP will help you then access a range of other services.
Yeah.
If you leave it too long, the problem will get acute, and then you will find that an individual will end up in serious mental health services. Most places in Birmingham, I know, has an early intervention team, intervention mental health team.
Yeah.
There's no stigma. In our community, there's a stigma around mental health and mental distress, that if someone's got a problem, they're considered as, crazy, mad, all that, negative terms.
And this is what we have to do ultimately, and this is what I say, and this is why I said it's something that the Ummah, the Muslim community, have to address, because the public sector have done it. And if the children see that these parents keep getting their salvation from the public sectors, then where are we showing that Islam is our salvation? And ultimately, if we're practicing the religion correctly, and the Ummah is functioning in the way that it should.
You see, it is, because obviously in Islam we believe in a kind of health service. We do. So the health service is inherently Islamic, alhamdulillah, as a model. So in that regard, indirectly it is Islamic, alhamdulillah. There are many Muslims that are working in it. But you're right, the support services from the Muslim community should be much more forthcoming, more active, more, engaging, so that, we don't let problems, like I said, develop. We intervene early on enough and we get the right support. And also, this is a key thing. Many problems that women have in terms of depression, anxiety, neurosis are actually nothing to do, are a symptom of an underlying problem. Sometimes it's mother-in-law issues, marriage issues, issues related to other people in the home, issues related to abuse they had as a child, lots of things.
Yeah.
And these are the big things that really, this is where there's a wall of silence, because they know if you start dealing with the depression of a particular individual, then it's going to unlock all these other issues.
Yeah.
And people want to kind of sometimes keep them all undercover, and obviously that's why services should be sensitive, confidential, discreet. All of those are aspects of a good service. But the point is that, we need to be talking about issues and supporting people who are vulnerable. This is the key thing. This is an Islamic responsibility. When Islam talks about safeguarding weak and vulnerable people, whether it's women, whether it's orphans, whether it's children, the ones who are weak and vulnerable, an Islamic responsibility is to safeguard those individuals.
Yeah, absolutely. It is our responsibility. If we're able and they're less able, then it doesn't mean you carry on with what you're doing with, you help those that are around you, inshallah. But Jazakallah khairan for coming on. It's always been a journey for me. I always have to be quiet and listen to what you're talking about, inshallah. But yeah, thank you so much. And we'll put things your way. If I get any contacts, I will refer them to you, inshallah.
Inshallah. Okay, inshallah.
Okay, take care, brother. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Okay, so nearly coming up to the end of the first half. I'm actually going to be taking calls after the show, inshallah. So if anybody wants to call in and speak to me afterwards, then that's fine. There's also a Sisters Circle that I would like to tell you about. It's going to be happening at Al Hijra Masjid, and that's 59 to 61 Hobmore Road, where they'll have inspiring talks, lessons from the Quran, tafsir, reminders from the Sunnah, lively discussions and social gatherings. And that's every Sunday 11:30 till 1:30. Good opportunity to get out, as the brother said. There are different things that you can do, but most importantly, I think getting out there and meeting other sisters is a really good way, of just alleviating yourself sometimes, because you can get put under so much stress. There's also coffee mornings at Kids Go Wild. That's on Fernley Road. I will be there, so please come along. I'd love to meet you, so we can discuss some of these issues. And like I said, if there are any organisations out there that are supporting mental health issues or the uncomfortable issues that I do bring up sometimes, then please let us know. We have to come together as a community and work, at raising a generation of children that are righteous and pious. And, I was looking at the snowflakes today and I thought, look at them, they're so small, and yet, when they come down in this mass, before you know it, you have this big blanket in front of you. Anyway, I hope you're enjoying the shows. Please call in, and I'll see you after the break, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.